Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic that's gotten a lot of attention in the console community recently, and that's the possibility that we've seen the end of platform-specific major tournaments in Fortnite. So there are basically three events that I would say have contributed to a lot of console pros really starting to get nervous about the future of competitive console Fortnite. The first revolves around what we saw with the Frosty Frenzy event that took place about a week ago. So this was basically the 2020 version of the Winter Royale, and unfortunately it disappointed in a few different aspects. First off, the prize pool was a lot lower than what we saw with the Winter Royale last year, the amount of time you had to play to make money was kinda ridiculous, and most importantly for this discussion, the fact that it wasn't a platform-specific event. If you're on console and you wanted to try to finish top 250 to 400 to place in the money depending on your region, you're gonna have to do so by going up against mainly PC players. Now I did definitely see some players on console place in the money, which is really impressive to say the least, but the total amount was probably very low, and I wonder if there was even one console-only trio that placed in the money. But at the end of the day, that part doesn't really matter. All you need to know is that last year it was a platform-specific tournament, and this year it wasn't. That alone probably isn't enough to fully sound the alarm bells, but at the least it's a bad sign. The second event that's important to consider here is the big news that I talked about in my last video, the fact that next-gen console Fortnite now gets 120 FPS after update 15.10. Now of course this is an absolutely massive positive in almost every regard, and it's just so great for console as a whole, but there is one theoretical negative to it. The main reason why Fortnite finally after 2 years gave in and started doing platform-specific tournaments in the first place is because there was just a lot of community outrage regarding how big of a disadvantage console was at. With Xbox One and PS4, you were capped at 60 FPS, you would drop to like 30 in endgame, there were tons of hitches and stutters, the graphics were bad, there were shadows everywhere, I could go on and on. So even though Fortnite's plan from the beginning was to have all platforms play in the same lobbies for comp, eventually they realized, hey, literally not a single non-PC player was qualifying for any major event, maybe it's time we make a change because console specifically is a very large portion of our player base. But now, with PS5 and both new Xboxes being at 120 FPS with better graphics, lower input lag, less shadows, more smooth in general, I could see Epic basically thinking, well, there we go, we leveled the playing field really well, so now we can go back to what we always wanted, everybody competing in the same lobbies for the same prize pool. Now I would personally disagree with that for sure. I do think the jump from 60 to 120 FPS is massive, and I do think console players will be able to hang a lot better with PC players now, but at the end of the day, higher end PCs probably on average get about double the FPS of what next gen caps out at. It's definitely not as bad as it being 3 to 4 times as much like it used to be, but it's still a very considerable advantage, and I don't think many people at all would disagree with that. The final factor for why Epic may be considering discontinuing platform-specific events is definitely the least obvious of the three, and that's basically the discontinuation of mobile Fortnite. As I'm sure you've all heard at this point because it was such a hot topic when it happened, a few months ago Epic began a legal fight against Apple due to certain terms of service with their App Store, and because of this, Apple, and I believe also Android as well, pretty much totally removed Fortnite from their App Stores. But more importantly, for people who already had it downloaded, Epic also now isn't allowed to push any updates to the mobile version of the game either. So you can still play it if you have it downloaded, but the game is still stuck in Season 3, I believe, and because of that, those players obviously can't compete in any competitive events. So that's important because the console section of platform events was always console and mobile. I'm fairly confident that there were more console players participating in those events, but the mobile community is actually a lot bigger than you may think, and a lot of those players did really well in those events. So my fear is that when Epic decided to do console/mobile events, they were basically thinking, alright, well, we can kill two birds with one stone here. If we throw console and mobile into the same tournaments, that makes two huge portions of the Fortnite community stop complaining. So now that mobile can't participate anyway, there's even less of an incentive to make things platform specific. And trust me, I'm not the only person who's considered these factors and the impact they may have on the future of competitive console Fortnite. For example, Bizek tweeted, "Trio FNCS was the last console tournament, mark my word." Drop said, "Console players better have a life plan now that there won't be any platform-based events." And Lupien said, "120 FPS coming to console tomorrow. I think it's time to officially say goodbye to console tourneys." But of course, there were also a good amount of players that kinda thought the opposite as well. As part of a longer tweet, Spudlight said, "I see Epic keeping the status quo of separate PC and console FNCS for at least 2 seasons, while they monitor how players are performing on the new settings." And I think it's interesting here that TK pointed out, "You guys realize mobile had 120 FPS and was separate from PC, stop panicking." But then I also think this reply was a good counter. They also played on 440p resolution with frame drops, a touchscreen, and 10-meter view distance. Now I also want to point out that technically a platform-specific event literally just ended yesterday, but it was a really weird one. It was called the Fortnite Generations Cup, and you could only play it if you were on PS4 or PS5, but the prizes were super underwhelming. The number 1 player in each region got a free PS5, and then the top 1,000 or 2,000 players in each region got a new skin called Indigo Kuna. So even though this technically was a platform-specific event, which I guess you could consider a positive sign, there also wasn't a single dollar rewarded to any player. So overall, I think this is an interesting discussion/debate, and I'm really not even totally sure where I stand if I had to guess. One thing I'm fairly confident about is that console players will still get platform-specific cash cups. I think those have been a big hit since they were first added into the game around a year ago, and since the prize pools for those aren't massive or anything, I would be pretty surprised if Epic went out of their way to remove them. However, for the major tournaments like the FNCSs, for example, those I'm a little bit more skeptical about the future of. I think the biggest point is that from the very beginning, Epic made it incredibly clear that their desire for competitive Fortnite is every platform competing together, and I'll give them props, they've done pretty much all they could on next gen to optimize the game as much as possible. So even though I think we can all agree that console would be at a massive disadvantage, I think in Epic's mind, they're basically like, well, we did it, guys. We got them 120 FPS, the graphics are way better, the game just runs smoother in general, now they're good to go against the PC players. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen because I really think competitive console Fortnite has a future and was starting to gain a decent amount of popularity, but at this point, it's really solely up to Epic whether or not it will continue. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. What do you think about the future of competitive console Fortnite? Is there going to be more platform-specific major events in the future, or no? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.